What are the necessities for life in the universe? Maybe it is a particular exacting peculiarity, one that just happened in the uncommon situations where conditions are totally great. An occasion that requests every single particle to be exactly adjusted, or on the other hand, maybe life begins no sweat. Simply put together a couple of irregular natural particles and life unavoidably produces. Every one of these conceivable outcomes is comprehensively steady with our ongoing information of life, which truly is simply us. All life on Earth is hereditarily related, far-off cousins beholding back to a solitary microbial progenitor known as LUCA, the least widespread normal predecessor. So, in spite of the biodiversity that we see today, we are in general only relatives of this one achievement. Perhaps there were others that in the end burnt out. However, for the present, we have no proof for such a case. Vitally, the way that there was no less than one achievement doesn't really show us anything, since we definitely know that. Obviously, there must be one achievement, or more than likely, how should you and I try and consider such inquiries? Life could be extraordinarily uncommon in the universe. What's more, assuming this is the case, it's no fortuitous event that we end up residing in one of the uncommon spots where it worked out, since for living things, for example ourselves, there could essentially be no alternate way. This implies that our simple presence, nor without a doubt that of the whole tree of life, doesn't help us in attempting to respond to this most fantastic of inquiries. How frequently does life begin? On the off chance that we were to one day find a second tree of life that would demonstrate that life began something like 2 times. All the more critically, that subsequent beginning would not have anything to do with us. Our reality isn't reliant upon regardless of whether it worked out. Such a disclosure would break the uncertainty. It would almost certainly be the main logical revelation in mankind's set of experiences. It are in good company to demonstrate that obviously, there has been many cases of life over time, living oceans on the moon, designed mists on Mars, fossil-like Martian shooting stars, Venusian biomarks, and obviously cases of outsider contact or sightings. However, none of these past cases have crossed the logical bar expected to call them a conclusive revelation, a reproducible arrangement of perceptions with an unambiguous understanding. The Martian trenches is an especially fascinating subject that we've examined exhaustively on this channel previously, showing how effectively our human predispositions can disrupt an objective investigation of information relating to outsider life. Obviously, a shortfall of proof isn't proof of non-attendance, all things considered. Life could be extraordinarily uncommon, or extremely normal, or in the middle between. So once more, our reality in of itself gives no helpful data here. As a matter of fact, attempting to involve it in such a way really frames a round contention. On account, obviously, our capacity to pose these inquiries is predicated upon no less than one achievement. A greatly improved piece of proof is the planning of when life arose on the Earth, happening inestimably speedy inside only 200 or 300 million years. In one of our past papers and recordings, I showed how this fast beginning is likewise still troubled with ambiguities. However, generally speaking, that's what it recommends, assuming we've been able to some way or another rerun the clock on Earth some other time over. Then, at that point, we'd give 9-to-1 wagering chances that life would for sure reappear rapidly indeed. On the off chance that you're open to calling 9-to-1 a sure thing, this single information point apparently settles the discussion, correct? Rerun Earth's clock over once more, and life would reappear. Hence, life ought to be normal across the universe. Indeed, it's that second step where we really want to proceed cautiously. Since recall that I'm rerunning Earth's clock here, so that implies that a planet with basically indistinguishable circumstances to the Earth, similar circle, similar mass, similar starting climate, even similar areas of every single rock on the planetary surface. In any case, assuming I move one of those stones or one of those volcanoes or one of those land masses, does that botch things? Like the butterfly impact, maybe even a little change could radically change the destiny of life to a possibly undeniably more desperate result. This is where the well-known uncommon Earth speculation comes in. First planned by teachers Peter Ward and Robert Brownlee, The uncommon Earth speculation has now turned into an exceptionally persuasive and discussed subject in astrobiology. As the name proposes, it contends that the states of our planet are unimaginably strange, finely adjusted, perfectly forever. If valid, the possibility that life begins rapidly with Earth-like circumstances turns out to be practically immaterial, in light of the fact that those conditions themselves are uncommon to the point that life barely at any point has an opportunity to get rolling. Or on the other hand, an alternate interpretation of the thought, and one that is more reliable with unique plan, is that exact Earth-like circumstances are vital for smart life specifically. Maybe there's organisms on Mars. However, assuming you need a human progress, you truly need something basically the same as Earth's. So what precisely is it that Ward and Brownlee recommend to be so extraordinary about our home? There's the genuinely clear ones, similar to mass and estimate. Too little and the planet's gravity debilitates such a lot of that it can't clutch a significant air. Too weighty and the planet's higher gravity gambles with out-of-control development into a monster planet. The following clear element is being the right distance. From your star, that fluid water is steady on a superficial level. At the point when the book was distributed in 2000, indeed, we truly had hardly any familiarity with both of those variables. Obviously, in the years since, exoplanet revelations have amassed, and presently we at long last have a few bits of knowledge. For instance, we presently realize that rough planets are normal around regular stars. In any case, we actually don't yet have the foggiest idea how normal are rough planets on Earth, like circles around sun-like stars. You can look at our past video to realize the reason why. However, uncommon Earth goes a lot farther than simply mass and circle. To acquire some knowledge, I will feature 4 key extra factors that are much of the time conjured by uncommon Earth defenders. Factor 1. A tenable planet needs to have a magnetosphere to shield it from high-energy radiation. This impact is coming into late concentration as we think about sending space travelers to the Moon or Mars on a drawn-out premise. The world's attractive field safeguards us from ionizing radiation, avoiding charge particles along its field lines. Since the Moon and Mars don't have an inborn worldwide attractive field, this ionizing radiation represents a well-being hazard to space explorers, prompting carcinogenic cells and radiation infection. Obviously, one arrangement is for space travelers just to dig in under some regolith, either in caves or tossing blockades on top of their base. As a matter of fact, the Earth basically does this for us by goodness of its a lot thicker environment. For sure, prestigious astrobiologist Jim Casting has contended that world's thick environment is as a matter of fact adequate to safeguard us even without an attractive field. A thought which has support from the way that life plainly endured during Earth's continuous attractive post-inversions. So maybe the field isn't all that significant, all things considered. Continuing on, factor 2 is that plate tectonics are essential forever and may likewise be intriguing. The primary purpose here is that biogeochemical patterns of rock, supplements, and synthetics are empowered by the subduction of outside. At the point when a maritime plate subducts under a mainland, we basically reuse synthetics secured in rocks, the fossils, and oil. The components inside them are freed under the extraordinary intensity and at last reappear through volcanic movement. It is imagined that this reusing is a benefit for science, keeping a new inventory of life's key fixings. In any case, here as well, there's been pushback. Some contending that Earth mass articles definitely structure plate tectonics, and that even without it, you can in any case have dynamic topography. For factor 3, we go to our Moon. Our Moon is extraordinarily enormous contrasted with the planet that it goes around. While most moons in the nearby planet group are something like 1 or 1,000 times the mass of their host planet, our Moon is multiple times more noteworthy at more than 1%. An outcome of this is that it impacts us, most observable through the tides. Be that as it may, going further, It's likewise remembered to balance out the hub slant of our planet, which is secured at a point of 23.5 degrees. It was Jacques Lascar who exceptional this thought in a fundamental paper in 1993. In any case, from that point forward, space expert Jack Lissauer has pushed back, proposing that steady obliquities can happen without a major moon as well. An enormous moon could help in alternate ways, excessively, for example, creating immense steady covering tides not long after its development. Furthermore, maybe even launching plate tectonics by means of the monster influence that shaped it. Yet, in the two cases, it's profoundly muddled how urgent these are forever. The last component I'll talk about is passing from a higher place, influences from comets and space rocks that could smother life on the Earth. Obviously, such a large number of these is terrible forever, in spite of the fact that it's likewise been recommended that insufficient is an issue as well. Maybe in some cases development becomes trapped in an endless cycle and needs a fresh start, a reset to gain ground once more. In this specific situation, Jupiter has been proposed to assume a significant part, maybe safeguarding us from monster influences. For instance, in 1994, we watched from the Earth as Jupiter took one for the group, as the 1.8 kilometers Shoemaker-Doody comet crushed into it. In any case, reproduction work doesn't give such a reasonable picture. As a matter of fact, stargazers Horn and Jones found that Jupiter really prompted more shooting star influences on the Earth, not less. So, as may be obvious, there has been significant pushback about the legitimacy of these singular elements. Presently, as opposed to doing a profound jump on each of these, I believe it's more valuable just to ask, how might we consolidate these together? Could we at any point, some way or another, utilization them to compute exactly the way that interesting Earth is? It was John Kramer who proposed that elements like these who be joined together to fabricate a purported uncommon Earth condition. It registers the quantity of Earth-like planets in the cosmic system, NE, as a component of the different data sources. So, for instance, we could compose something like this, where FP is the small portion of stars with planets. FR is the small portion of those planets that are rough. FH is the small portion of those planets that are in the tenable zone. FM is the small part of those with a huge moon. What's more, FJ is the small portion of those with a Jupiter-like sidekick. 5 variables, and indeed, I'm disregarding the geography factors in this model. Notice that by development, everyone is a subset of the past. So Fi, for instance, isn't the negligible portion of all planets in the tenable zone, yet rather it's only for the rough ones. This is known as contingent likelihood, and it will be vital to recollect. Presently, this succession of multiplicative, restrictive probabilities particularly looks like the renowned Drake condition, which works out the number of developments that are in the world. Truth be told, the relationship is significantly more profound on the grounds that the Drake condition has an unequivocal boundary for the small amount of planets that are Earths. So that implies that we could supplant this one Drake term with the last 4 elements from our intriguing Earth condition very much like this. As a result, then, the interesting Earth speculation can in this manner be seen to sort of grow that solitary boundary. Either Earth at the Drake condition into a heap of better grain boundaries that are fundamental for genuine Earth analogs. I think introduced this way, it apparently appears to be an overhaul, correct? We're further developing the Drake condition, we are representing a refined numerical rendition of it. However, is truly evident? Surely one benefit of this numerical structure is that it's entirely adaptable. See, you could differ that an enormous moon is essential forever, yet rather feel that a sun-like star is required. Okay, fine. You can undoubtedly trade out that figure the condition which would in any case leave you with 4 more extraordinary variables. That would give us this condition, which we'll consider situation A. On the other hand, maybe you believe that the Earth is an undeniably more tenuous and finely tuned idea than these 4 factors alone can consider. Maybe you add on a boundary for the planetary group's cosmic area, and afterward one more for the plant's underlying air, and afterward one more for the land-to-sea proportion, and so on and what not. At last, perhaps you end up with a rundown of, say, 80 elements, 80 particular properties, that are all the while fundamental for a plant to be genuinely tenable. We should call this situation B. So what is the impact of having 4 elements in situation A versus 80 in situation B? Indeed, for effortlessness, we should envision that every one of these elements has a half possibility being valid. So for instance, the principal factor is the likelihood of a planet being rough, which is half, which unintentionally is about the right response. In situation A, we have 4 uncommon Earth factors. So the last likelihood of getting an Earth is 1/2 increased without anyone else multiple times, which we can compose is 1/2 to the force of 4. That's what sorting out. That provides us with a last likelihood of 1/16 or 6.25%. All right, so uncommon, yet at the same not incredibly intriguing. Presently, how about we attempt situation B? With 80 variables, we need to do 1/2, however, presently to the force of 80, which rises to 1 out of many trillion, or 10 to the force of 24. That is a number so strangely little that in any event, taking into account each and every star in the detectable universe, you actually wouldn't get a solitary other Earth. Obviously, the decision of a 1/2 likelihood in that model was completely erratic. The genuine place of that little activity was to feature exactly how significant the quantity of elements we remember for the situation are. I think frequently we get draped up quarreling over the upsides of those singular boundaries. Would it be advisable for them to be 1% or 10%? Yet in reality, it's frequently undeniably more essential to quarrel over the number of boundaries that ought to go into that situation in any case. Presently, obviously, we don't actually have any idea the number of variables to incorporate. Recollect that these elements are planned to depict the various circumstances important to make a planet fit for supporting life. On the off chance that we had a demonstrated, general hypothesis for the starting points of life, we could sort out the vital boundaries on the writing board, stomach muscle initio. However, we don't. We have very little familiarity with how life started. Without that, one could take a stab at viewing at our own planet as a solitary data of interest and attempting to extrapolate, figure out what the circumstances for life in the universe really are. Obviously, attempting to extrapolate off a solitary information point is extraordinarily unstable. Furthermore, without a doubt, this is the very thing numerous pundits have proposed that Ward and Brownlee are truly doing. What's more, while they have sensible contentions for the elements they view as significant, we've perceived how there's extensive discussion about them also. Besides, it's basically impossible to test these cases until we start to distinguishing life somewhere else in the universe. Also, I think this is where my own interests come into center. The entire way of thinking of figuring out ourselves as an admired illustration of life in the universe is innately human-centric. It implicitly supports a limited viewpoint, one that accepts that the manner in which things occurred here is the main way which savvy life can arise. That our experience, our set of experiences, is the sole channel through which sentience can bloom. What's more, look, all of us are frequently at real fault for this in everyday life. We base quite a bit of our way of thinking of life upon our own immediate encounters, overlooking the extremely divergent, frequently difficult encounters that our kindred person is journeying through. A full comprehension of life, both separately and concerning science, requires a bigger view, a more extensive point of view. That could seem as though I'm waxing somewhat over insightfully here. What's more, in some cases, I'm liberal of that. In any case, let me simply outline a particular numerical outcome of this with regards to the starting points of life. See, I can purchase the contention that the starting points of humankind are for sure the result of a progression of exceptionally doubtful occasions. To start with, you really want X, then you want Y, and afterward, you really want Z. Also, as we add an ever-increasing number of terms. Indeed, I concur that probabilities become vanishingly little. In any case, critically, that recipe may not be the main way to knowledge. There might be completely different, divergent roads to show up at a progress. So, for instance, despite the fact that a speculative world may very well never have had a magnetosphere, it was a moon circling a Goliath planet. What's more, hence, safeguarded by the Goliath's attractive field, all things considered. A totally outsider arrangement, yet one which, all things considered, could ultimately prompt savvy life. Conditions like the Drake condition and the uncommon Earth condition expect an intrinsically solid, solitary pathway, since, recollect, each term in that situation is restrictive upon the past one, framing a consistently limiting channel towards something which progressively seems as though us. However, the quest for keen life in the universe isn't simply a quest for our doppelgangers, it's far more extensive than that. Thus, maybe we ought to envision adding a few equal ways to those situations. For instance, we should envision that the planet had neglected to shape an enormous moon. That doesn't imply that the ways to wise life are shut. That shut entryway could open down another, truth be told. One more pathway towards insight that is particular and outsider to that of our own. Along these lines, we would need to add equal variants of the situation to itself. We never again have a progression of increasing variables. No, presently we have an amount of a progression of increasing entertainers. Maybe there's a couple of ways, perhaps only one, or maybe there's an innumerable number. We just don't have the foggiest idea. Thus, along these lines, I for one don't buy into the uncommon Earth speculation. Presently you could rush to make the judgment call that I in this way accept there are loads of Earths out there, correct? All in all, on the off chance that I don't trust in X, then unquestionably that implies I put stock in something contrary to X, correct? Unfortunately, that is much of the time become the sort of dichotomous rationale that the cutting-edge media frequently attempts to drum into us. Be that as it may, it's a bogus division. In science, it's okay to stay skeptic about an inquiry until proof is introduced one way or the other. What's more, at the present time, we have no proof. So I, to be sure, keep my conviction. I'm not a cynic, I'm not a promoter. I simply anticipate the outcome with distinct fascination. As I've spoken about on this channel previously, I think this way of thinking is profoundly significant. Consider that you tell yourself as well as other people that you put stock in, say, the uncommon Earth speculation. Regardless of the reality, we have actually no unquestionable proof for it. All right, fine. In any case, presently you face a potential moment of retribution. When the information comes in, then perhaps you see that you were off base. Thus so frequently there isn't anything that we track down harder in life than to concede that we were off base, particularly assuming we express that view freely. All things being equal, there is a disastrous inclination to control the data, to devise perpetually elaborate story-fitting understandings, and to search out any short clip we can find to concur with our underlying bias, even in some cases at a psyche level. Since conceding that you were off base feels terrible. In any case, accepting that you were correct feels better. What's more, search, in a way, I don't actually have to let you know this on the grounds that, hello, we as a whole live in this cutting-edge period. Yet, the genuine point is that even in cosmology, with regards to questions, for example, how frequently life starts, or the overflow of civic establishments in the universe, we have basically no information. As it's all right to keep your conviction until you see proof one way or another. You don't need to establish a banner on issues without any information. We'll get to the information on this one day, however, it could be an extremely lengthy street in front of us. But when that day comes, we should ensure that we leave our human-centric inclination, our predispositions, our confidence at the entryway. Also, simply tune in into what the universe is expressing to us with open ears and clear eyes. So until sometime later, remain insightful and remain inquisitive.